It is a special WrestleMania show on the Daily Wrestling News Show.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
This is a special edition of the Daily Wrestling News Show for the week I'm on vacation or some other time. My name is Ryan Joy, and I am coming to you not live, but from the Minutes to Bell Time studio on the beautiful Treasure Coast of the Sunshine State. And I am joined today by the man who chose WrestleMania 36. It's one of his favorite WrestleManias, Al Karl. Good morning, sir. Here we are.
Good morning, Ryan. How's everything going today? It's WrestleMania season. I'm excited. I can't wait. And let's just get right to it. WrestleMania 36. A little bit of a backstory here. This was actually supposed to be the launch of the Essential Wrestling podcast, from my understanding. Everything with COVID happened. The EWP got delayed. And I had all these notes. I had all this stuff written down. I was ready to roll to pull the trigger and start the Essential Wrestling podcast with Tyler Adele. WrestleMania week, and unfortunately we got delayed as well, just like everything else did. But the main purpose, why this is one of my favorites, everything got delayed. Vince and the WWE, they kept rolling. They fought through it, and I give them all the credit in the world for that. So we're gonna keep rolling with it.
We have so our agenda on these WrestleMania shows is a little different than our standard Daily Wrestling News Show agenda. We start with a question, and then we hit trivia in the beginning of the show, and then we do a full breakdown of WrestleMania 36. And at the end of the show, we will decide whether it holds up to the test of time. And this WrestleMania is very unique because, it was just last year. So looking back at it with a historical perspective is a little bit more difficult than if you were to look at, say, WrestleMania 4, 5, 6, or even 20. But we'll do our best to kind of judge that question. It's also really different because of the setting. So we'll get to it here. And Al, the question, what is your earliest memory of WrestleMania?
My earliest memory of WrestleMania, the first WrestleMania I ever watched was by VHS, video cassette tape, when I was a little boy, was WrestleMania 5, where the Mega Powers exploded. Ultimate Warrior was defending the title. He actually ended up losing to Rick Rude. That upset me as a little 8, 9-year-old. I was a big Warrior fan. The first pay-per-view I ever saw was SummerSlam 88. And that hooked me on the Ultimate Warrior. He came out and trashed the Honky Tonk Man within a minute. So I was a big Warrior fan. I was upset that he lost the title to Rick Rude. He ended up getting it back at SummerSlam. But WrestleMania 5 was the first video cassette that was in my little small little booth at the local ShopRite we used to shop at, where they had you can rent the videos in there. So the Mega Powers exploding. That whole thing with Hogan and Savage, the Rockers got bum rushed by the Twin Towers. A match that actually made my top 30 favorite WrestleMania countdown. Mr. Perfect versus the Blue Blazer, who was Owen Hart. So that was a hidden classic. Wasn't the longest match ever, but it was definitely ahead of its time for the time that they gave him. But yeah, WrestleMania 5, and then the first WrestleMania I watched live was WrestleMania 6.
Oh,
and Hogan Warrior, like I said, I was the biggest Warrior fan there was, and I haven't probably popped that big since Warrior moved out of the way of that leg drop and hit the splash and became WWF champion.
Man, that 4, 5, and 6 range, that's my jam as well.
Yeah.
WrestleMania 5, the thing that burns out to me, like I would always think of Hogan Savage in the main event, but that Piper's Pit episode was pretty awesome too.
With Robert Morton Downey Jr.
Yes,
and I believe Brother Love was the original guest, and then he shot Morton Downey Jr. for a fire extinguisher because he was smoking in the ring.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
Oh, the 80s.
I know. You can't smoke anywhere these days. So.
No. But he was Morton Downey Jr. You could do what he wanted, right? At least he thought he could.
Yeah. Well, Piper made him pay for that, and
Yeah, he did.
so like I mentioned earlier, we do things differently on these WrestleMania specials because obviously you would probably know the answer to the trivia questions at the end of the show. So we're going to ask them at the beginning of the show, and it can't be as simple as who won this or who won that.
Yeah,
Get a little creative here because I know you've done some research. So let me play our bumper, and we'll get going with trivia. Okay. Question 1. Who sang America the Beautiful to kick off night 1 of WrestleMania?
it was the montage. It was like everybody, right? They had Aretha Franklin and they had Lillian. It was a montage of all the past WrestleManias, correct?
That's correct. Boom, right off the bat. That's a bit of a trick question, and you nailed it. So that's good.
Yeah, I actually really appreciate it. That was really clever and really well put together. That was good.
I don't know who they had lined up to actually sing "America the Beautiful." I don't think they announced that ahead of time, but that montage was great, I thought.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so how did AJ Styles arrive at the Boneyard Match?
He was in a casket in a hearse. We were supposed to believe it was the Undertaker coming in first.
That's right. So you're 2 for 2.
You're right.
Now, Gronk opened the show on night 2. He said things were only going to get better because it's Sunday, and he knew a thing or two about A, winning championships on Sunday, B, going the distance on Sunday, C, dropping the hammer on a championship Sunday, or D, making your opponents beg for mercy on Sunday.
I would think all right. I don't know if I would say he would know a thing about winning championships on a Sunday. I would think it would be A.
It's dropping the hammer on a championship Sunday.
I don't know, dropping the hammer.
So I had to give you one real hard one. So.
That was tough.
Yep. When Gronk won the 24/7 championship, who took over as host of WrestleMania? And you have choices.
No, don't even worry about it. Because Titus's face after the Firefly Funhouse match was it's Titus O'Neil.
Yes.
I don't know what the hell that was. I forget what he said, but that was
I have it in my notes, so we'll get to that. And then finally, your last question is, which match was longer? Goldberg versus Braun Strowman or Drew McIntyre versus Brock Lesnar?
I don't have the times on that. I have the scores. Both scores were 4-3. We'll get to that. Oh God. I'll go with Lesnar and McIntyre. I think there was a little more play within the moves that they were doing. I think Goldberg just hit the spears right away, and then the power slam. I'm gonna go with McIntyre and Lesnar.
Yeah, that's right. It was Braun versus Goldberg was 2 minutes 11 seconds. Drew versus Brock was 4 minutes 28 seconds.
Oh wow! So it was twice as long. Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of like watching an episode of NWA Power. Those matches were quick. Big move, go home.
There's some coffee left.
All right, so 4 for 5, and he was the subject of one of the questions, so we'll give you the Goldberg Award. And let's move into WrestleMania 36.
There we go.
First WrestleMania, too big for one night. It occurred on April 4th and April 5th of 2020 in front of no fans.
Yeah, it set the indoor attendance record the other way.
That's right. The event was originally planned to take place at Raymond James Stadium with a crowd of like 80,000 people. Okay. But a pandemic swept the globe, causing commerce, sports, and entertainment to pause. WWE worked with the state of Florida to continue operating, and they put on a show with no fans. So thank you.
Yeah, that was the deal. That was the big thing that the governor of Florida deemed professional wrestling essential. So, I mean, that worked. So WWE could do this, but that worked for AEW as well. But that's how we became the Essential Wrestling Podcast. That's how we came up with the name. Well, Pro Wrestling Essential, and that's why we pushed the Eastern Observer. Listen, we're still going. I understand, you guys everything's paused right now. Vince is trucking along. The show must go on. He is dead set against that. And like I said at the beginning of this, that is the reason why this is one of my favorite. Like they did this for us. They could have easily just packed up and went away, but they decided to fight through it. And they gave the wrestlers the options. And I want to say 95% of them did it. Like they went through it with them. You know, they may have taken time off afterwards, but they decided like, oh, the fans need this. The country needs, everybody needs this right now. And yet the backlash was, oh, it's not going to be the same because there's no fans. It's not going to be the same because it's not in a big stadium. It's not going to be the same. You know what? They gave us what they could. They could have easily just, and then they would have got killed for that. Like, they're not even going to try. You know, so it was a lose-lose situation from a fan standpoint, but the wrestlers busted their ass. The ownership and the production busted their ass to put this together for us. So that is why I'm choosing this episode for right now, and thank you. I might be the only person in this entire world that was excited about WrestleMania, was very thankful that they put their lives and their careers and their health in jeopardy just to entertain us. You know, who are we? That's selfish on our part, asking to be entertained, you know, while there's a pandemic going on or spiking as big as it did in March and April. And it's just, there's no gratitude there. I don't get that. And the fun thing about this, Rye, the storyline, or the storylines aren't the same, or they may have thrown to get things together last minute, but the story was the pandemic. Now, as running the pool that I run, every morning I woke up, what's happening today? Oh my God, Roman Reigns is out. And the next day, what happened today? Oh my God, the Miz screwed up, the Miz is out. What's happening today? Oh, they taped it 2 weeks early. Now, as the owner of a website that does pick'ems, I can't have these matches leaked. I have to pull them from the site. So it's just one of those things. Now I'm constantly looking through, like, oh my God, did anything get leaked? And thank God nothing did. But it was a real life story that I felt I was involved in. And it was a lot of fun. Every morning I woke up, I don't know what I'm waking up to. It could be anything on social media, any type of news article from WWE or from Uncle Dave or from Ringside News or wherever, you know, social media things pop up on my Facebook feed. It was just a crazy 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And it wasn't gold in the beginning when they were doing Raw and SmackDown with the empty arenas. They were trying, I think the first show in empty arena was on SmackDown. And I think Bayley and Alexa Bliss got caught taking a break during a commercial, which was kind of funny, but like, what are you supposed to do? You know, so it was, you know, they worked through the trials and the tribulations, and they busted their ass, and they did it for us. And that's, I don't get it. It's not the same. It won't be the same without a stadium. I love wrestling fans. I love wrestling, but sometimes, man, we're just so spoiled.
Well, I think, you know, when we look back at it, history is not going to be particularly kind to this WrestleMania. I think I think your viewpoint is a fresh one, and it's a nice one, because I don't think a lot of people are going to agree with that.
No, I'm not planning them to, but I'm not planning them to agree with me. But like I said, wrestling fans, unfortunately, they're the hardest critics. We'll just leave it at that. They're the hardest critics. If it's not perfect, then if it's not the attitude era. See, that's the biggest thing, right? You know, let's just go off topic for like 2 seconds here. If wrestling today is not like it was when it was their childhood, they don't like it. But the thing is, they don't understand is, it's not the attitude era, or it's not the golden era, or whatever they want to call it. When me and you grew up, Robert, we grew up, our mentalities changed.
Sure. Yep.
The same argument with Star Wars. Well, there's nothing, the new ones aren't like the new trilogy. Well, you were not the same person you once were when that first trilogy came out. Like everybody grew up. Now, but then you have kids now that are watching this, that are 9 and 10, or our age when we were watching Hulk Hogan and The Ultimate Warrior. They are loving this, and they're going to complain 20 years down the line, oh, it wasn't the same, back in 2021, So it's just our mindset's changed. So yeah, I'm just feel fortunate enough to watch wrestling Now it's going to be on. It's on pretty much every day, 5 days a week, sometimes 7. And I'm grateful to get to watch it. And I'm happy to be able to talk about it in a positive sense and try to get other people excited about it.
Yeah, imagine how much wrestling there's going to be when this pandemic does eventually end and all these companies come back. This was an interesting time. It's hard for people to probably remember. This was at the beginning, April 4th and April 5th. That episode of SmackDown that you just talked about, that would have been the March 14th. So this was like 3-4 weeks later, after the world basically shut down. This was brand new. So there was a lot of questions like you brought up. There were both people talking about health and safety. There were people talking about finances, because the reality is, if WWE could have run an arena with full capacity a month later or 2 months later or 6 months later, it would have been a much better financial success. It would have earned millions of dollars of ticket revenue. It turned out to be the right decision, because they could not have come back 1 or 2 or even 6 months later.
Yeah.
And on the health side, the reality is running WrestleMania in that way was no different than the way WWE or AEW were running television tapings at the time. It was no more risky than that. So that is what it is. Now, the one thing I will say, you talked all that about wrestling fans. So I want to read the Wrestling Observer reader poll numbers, because I think that's an interesting metric of how people were looking at it. Now, these people that got the Observer, those are your diehards, right? So day one, roughly 600 voters gave a thumbs up. 57% gave a thumbs up to the show. Good. Now 20% gave it a thumbs in the middle. So that's about 77% of the diehards saying the show was at least good.
Now,
right?
Are you sure it was thumbs in the middle, that they were irrelevant, or they just be like, "Oh my God, the bar, that's awesome"? So no, I'll consider those thumbs up as well, because they set the bar. Yeah, there you go.
Now day 2 they weren't as kind to. They only 26 gave thumbs up and 27 gave thumbs in the middle. So about half the fans liked day 2. So that's not bad, because really WWE, you have to kind of give them a curve with that group of readers, because they are traditionally a little bit lower rated than, say, the Japan shows or things like that, or the AEW shows. So you give a little bit of a curve to WWE in that regard, and so it's a pretty good WWE show when you look back at it. Yeah,
and day one, I would say that day one probably better between the two. Plus, like I said, you're going to ask people after each day, okay, so which show was better? And now we had night 1. You had the Boneyard match that's fresh in your head, and you're just like, oh my God, this was awesome. And then at day 2, you have the 4-minute and whatever second championship match that really wasn't much of anything. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I can see how that could be. And then with the Firefly Funhouse, like what the bleep was that? So I'm sure the more and more people watch the Firefly after the fact, it probably it was better, But
yeah. So the commentary teams. We had Byron Saxton and Tom Phillips on the Raw side. No big change there. Yeah. Michael Cole and JBL.
Yeah.
So there's a change. JBL was supposed to go into the Hall of Fame. I guess they consider him a Hall of Famer, even though they never had the ceremony. But Corey Graves, not there.
No, Corey was one. Like I said, I'd say about 95%, 90 to 95%. I don't know the exact number. It seemed like 90 to 95%. Showed up. Corey wasn't one of them. That's fine, and that's not a knock on it. It's not a knock on Roman either. It's not. That's if your health, whatever. I get it. It's fine.
Yeah,
Corey didn't want to do it, then that's fine.
Absolutely. So when I looked at the, when I fired this up and started watching for the first time, a couple of things that really stood out to me. The PC was so polished, so clean, so quiet, maybe too pretty for a wrestling show. It was really weird in that way. And then in this era, when the pandemic first started, those referees were stars. You heard so much of the referee like chatter, of the counting and the stuff back in here. It was, far more than you do today. So in that era, they were much more free with like, this is referee Jessica Carr. Today it was like, today they say the referee, but used names at that point because they were actually stars. They were
there was 3 people on screen at all times, and they were one of them. So yeah.
Okay, so night 1 begins with Stephanie McMahon. She tells us it's a closed set, and she does say, "Welcome to WrestleMania," in that Stephanie McMahon way. And then we're treated to that montage of America the Beautiful, performances from years gone by, like Aretha Franklin, Willie Nelson, Little Richard, Gladys Knight, Michelle Williams, John Legend, Ray Charles, the Harlem Boys Choir, and a ton more of the more recent folks. And then you go to that video package, with all the pirates and all that stuff. And that ends with Captain Jack Sparrow-esque voice saying, "Tonight, adventure awaits. History waits for no one. The time to shape their history begins right now. Welcome to the grandest stage of all. Welcome to WrestleMania."
Yeah, I just got goosebumps, right? Just hearing you say that, because the part that was lost on my end, and far be it from me, I never watched the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Like, I wouldn't have known that's what it was, unless somebody told me. And so.
I don't know if that was Johnny Depp, but it sure did sound like him.
Might have been.
It may have been, but it seems kind of weird that they wouldn't have put him on camera in any way. But I guess if it's just a voiceover, then maybe they wouldn't. But it was
quarantining. Come on.
What's that?
He was quarantining. Everybody was quarantining.
Absolutely. Everybody was. Nobody was
across the country in Hollywood, probably in his thing. He probably did that. If it was him, he was probably doing that voiceover in his jacuzzi.
Yeah, that's right. And so from there, we get our first glimpse of the Performance Center. No pyro at all. Just some pretty lights. And Rob Gronkowski, who knows how to start a party on Saturday and not finish it until 30 hours later on Sunday.
That's it. That's our Gronk. That's the Gronk I grew. Actually, I have. Here we go. I actually have down there. I got my Rob Gronkowski action figure back when he was a good guy.
The show kicks off with the Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss versus the Kabuki Warriors. It's for the Women's Tag Team Championships. It was one of the title changes on the show, and it went 15 minutes. Some interesting points in the match that I picked out. You had 2 pins that got broke up that I really liked. You had Kairi Sane breaking up a pin with the insane elbow.
Yep.
And you had Alexa Bliss breaking up a submission with Twisted Bliss.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Say, rewatching this was the second time I watched it. I didn't watch it. I haven't watched it since it aired live. This went long. If you were to tell me this went 25 minutes, I would have believed it. I'm actually a little shocked it was clocked in under 20. But that was an absolutely incredible match. And again, I've been saying this since this whole thing started. When Tyler and I first went on air, and I believe Asuka got the Carl with a K award, she was the 2020 the no attendance MVP. Her and Montez Ford easily. Asuka, she shined right from the get-go. She didn't need any time to adapt to no crowd. She was just like, "Oh, I get to be okay," and then she started doing the dancing and everything, So, and Kyrie joined in on that too. It wore off on Kyrie. The 2 of them were absolutely phenomenal in that match. They were beaten up, and from my notes I have right now, Cross got her butt kicked, and but she wouldn't stay down. And then it was the Twisted Bliss for the end. So there was new tag team champions for the second year in a row. Their champions are now 0-2 at WrestleMania. In the women's division. And I got that one wrong. So I'm 0-1 right now. My pick was the Kabuki Warriors going into that. I figured, you know what? Asuka gets owed one for putting over Charlotte. I kind of have that mentality sometimes when I make my picks. You know what? What's her record? Okay, so Asuka was 0-1. She was in the Battle Royal the 1 year. She was held off I think it's time for Asuka to win, get a championship defense or whatever. We didn't get it, and unfortunately, I'm probably going to have that same mentality when I'm making my picks for this year's WrestleMania. So I'm 0-1 right off the bat, but an absolutely phenomenal match. I really enjoyed rewatching that again to see the 4 of them shine brighter than what I originally gave them credit for.
Yeah, and what I'd like to do with these is I always like to give you the star ratings if I have them from our Uncle Dave. He didn't rate these. He didn't rate WrestleMania 36 at all because he felt like there was so much editing and stuff that it was unfair. Now he would revise that mentality as things went forward because this was going to be the life for the year. This was going to be the situation. So, match 2, King Corbin versus Elias. The backstory here is King Corbin actually tossed Elias off the Performance Center perch 8 days prior. So Corbin comes out to the ring and he thinks he's going to just be awarded the win. But Elias comes out. Elias hits Corbin with a guitar before the match even starts. And eventually Corbin attempted a pin with his feet on the ropes. Jessica Carr saw it. Elias rolled up Corbin, hooked the tights for the win, 8 minutes, 30 seconds. Not one of the best matches on the show, but it was there.
No, it was there. And this is where I liked that it was 2 nights and that each card, it was 8 matches plus a pre-show, and then on night 2 there was the post-show. But you would have never have gotten this match if it wasn't 2 nights. And right. I that's another reason why I think this is great, because we're seeing this is more of like the WrestleMania 5 mentality, where WrestleMania 5 was probably about 13, 14 matches long, but they were they got everybody involved. They were all one-on-ones. They didn't have triple threats or multi-ladder matches back then, But you got your Ronnie Garvin's versus Greg the Hammer Valentine's. And they only got 5 minutes or whatever long, but it's fine. They can say they were on the show. And you know what? The more important thing was Baron Corbin owed us a loss after what he did to Kurt Angle the year before. So that was my mentality with that match. Baron Corbin owed us one for that. So we got what we wanted when Elias got the win on that. So I'll take the points on that one.
Not only did Corbin give us that loss, but he would go on to give us a lot of losses in 2020. His record was abysmal for the year.
Oh, yeah.
The next match, match 3, perhaps one of the more anticipated matches of WrestleMania, was Shayna Baszler versus Becky Lynch for the Raw Championship. There was a lot of hype for this. Shayna drew number 30 in the Royal Rumble, but she didn't win. She appeared on Raw and she bit Becky Lynch like a vampire.
Yeah.
And then she went on to the Elimination Chamber and she ran through them like a knife through warm butter. She destroyed every single person in the Elimination Chamber, including Asuka. Becky started arriving to venues in a tractor trailer, which is how she made her way to WrestleMania.
Yep.
And a lot of people thought that Becky would drop the belt here to Shayna, but she did not. She retained, and she actually never lost that championship. She gave it up when she wanted to take her leave and for pregnancy. And then, so Lynch reversed her Kirifuda clutch for a pin to get the win. 8 minutes and 30 seconds, same length as the previous match. There you go. Becky Lynch wins.
Yes, it was. She got the roll through. I have Bret Hart, Steve Austin. Bret Hart was the first time I ever saw that at the Survivor Series. What was that, 96? If I remember correctly. But yeah, I had Shayna. I figured, Becky had it for the year. It was a great title run. She won it at WrestleMania 35. This whole thing, Shayna was supposed to win the Rumble, and then she didn't, but she threw out 8 and she finished second. So it wasn't like it was a bad performance in the Rumble. So I guess they decided to go the Charlotte route for whatever reason. I guess that's the go-to route. But where was I going to go with this? And then the Elimination Chamber. Yeah, she made history. She had 5 eliminations in an Elimination Chamber. Never been done before. The biting thing, though, that bothered me. It takes something to make me get bothered about why would you, and question why you do something. And that was one of the things. That's not Shayna. Shayna's not. She's an ass kicker, for lack of a better term. If you want to bend her arm and snap it, sure, or wrap her leg, she does all that stuff. Biting, I don't think that was a very good move.
It was weird.
To bring her in with this, because that's not her style. If you want to bring in Su Yung and do that, perfect. But it was really, I didn't like it. And that's for me to say that about something. That's something. So it's But yeah, I guess Becky ran the year and it never lost it. She had over 365. Not many people can say they've done that in history. She didn't last too long on the SmackDown side. I think she won that belt too at 35. That one didn't last too long.
Right.
But she got the Raw title all the way through. And then, like I said, the argument here is I picked Shayna Baszler. Was this a handicap match? Was Becky pregnant during this match? Or I feel like that Becky should have been disqualified. No, she wasn't pregnant during this match. They wouldn't have let her wrestle if she was. Get off me. Don't at me.
Daniel Bryan versus Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental Championship. It was the fourth match. Cesaro and Nakamura. This is back when they were with Sami Zayn. And Sami Zayn would actually get a win here. And it was, as you mentioned, people showed up for Mania. And then they took their part. So we didn't see much of Sami after this until he returned late summer. But the ending to the match was Cesaro and Nakamura were taking advantage of Drew Gulak on the outside. Bryan went out. He went to climb the ropes to do some sort of aerial offense as his re-entry into the ring. But Sami caught him with a haluva kick. He got the pin in 9 minutes, 16 seconds. A fairly clean victory for Sami Zayn over Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. And like I said, we didn't see a lot of Sami after that.
No, we didn't see Daniel Bryan either. And I think we kind of didn't know. I picked Sami in this. I want to say that the reason why I picked Sami, I don't remember exactly, but Sami, this was the first match he's been touched. Because that was the whole thing. He had Cesaro and Nakamura, and you could never get to Sami. He always ran. And even when he won the Intercontinental Championship at the Elimination Chamber, Strowman never touched him. Sami never got punched or slapped or whatever. He snuck in and he got the pinfall. It was a 3-on-1 handicap match. So Cesaro and Nakamura did all the dirty work for him. But it was just one of those things like, this is too good to not keep going. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I picked Sami. The Intercontinental Championship doesn't get defended too often at WrestleMania. So Sami Zayn joined a very short list as people who've successfully defended that title at this event. And the hindsight being 2020 now, it was actually the right decision. If you knew both of them were leaving, okay, well, what do we do? Let's just keep it on Sami, because then when we bring him back, he could be just the most obnoxious person in the entire world, and that's the Sami Zayn we know and love today.
Yes.
So I think it was well done. Like I said, they both took their personal time afterwards. For whatever reason, I do believe Brie was pregnant with their second child at this point in time. So Daniel went home. That was the right thing to do. Sami, I still don't know why he left. I'm sure he had his reasons. I'm not going to question him. But they did it for us. Thank you, Sami Zayn. Thank you, Daniel Bryan. You did the Intercontinental Championship proud. Thank you.
Yes. Well said. The next match is one of these ones where there was a big change. John Morrison versus Kofi Kingston versus Jimmy Uso for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. Notice there was not tag teams there. This was a singles match for the tag titles, and they did this a couple of times around this era, but this was the first one. I did not love it at the time. I was like really down on it. I'm like, why are the tag titles being defended in a singles match? I didn't like it. When I went back and watched this match, though, if you can kind of get past that point and just look at the match for what it is, this was a good match. We didn't have an explanation during the show of why it was a singles match for the tag titles, but in storyline, The Miz got injured. In fact, he was ill. But that was just one of the talent changes on the card. So Kofi would go for a springboard drop kick. He went through the uprights on the ladder to do that. He got caught and thrown out of the ring by John Morrison and Jimmy Uso. And John Morrison, another highlight of the match, he set up a ladder in the corner, and he hit Starship Pain on Jimmy Uso in that ladder. Jimmy's ladder got pushed over during the match, and he fell all the way to the floor. Creative camera angles. I think they probably had a crash mat there, which is why not, in the situation that they were in.
Yep.
And it had a very weird finish, though, because all three men climbed to the top. The tag titles were attached to this like apparatus. So all three unhook the apparatus, and they're all holding the tag team titles. Well, John Morrison falls, but he unfastens the belt as he falls, and he's got the two belts. They call for the belt. Morrison is the winner because he retrieved the belts. They had the apparatus, but he had the belts. Very good match.
That was awesome. If memory serves me correct, I know you said Miz was ill. I think Miz got into the arena not knowing he was ill.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that was the case, and that set up the whole thing. And I think that's kind of what set off Roman to go home.
Yeah.
I think that was a chain reaction right there. But the one thing, so that's what happened with Miz, as far as I know. That you can SpongeBob that. That's how rumors get started. Little upset that he wasn't in the match. Now, the Miz has been on the brink of WrestleMania history for the longest time right now. In the history of championship title defenses, Triple H has 4 all time. He defended at 14, 16, 19, and then again at 25. Nobody else has more than 2, and Miz is one of the people at 2. So I'm like, oh my God, Miz will get his 3rd. It'll separate himself from the pack, and he gets kicked out of the match. And then Morrison ends up winning. So I'm just like, oh my God, he would have had it again. He would have had it. So he's constantly on the cusp. Absolutely amazing match. John Morrison signed. And I guess the rumors going into this match, too, is that Kofi wasn't even supposed to be in it. I remember all the things like, well, Miz is out. So now it's just going to be a one-on-one with one of the Usos and John Morrison. They didn't even mention which Uso. And I thought that was really well. What the hell? Like, there was nothing on the New Day or Kofi or E or whoever. I thought that was really weird too, but I'm glad they got Kofi in it.
Yeah.
Glad Morrison defended it. I think a lot of people were very upset with how they were treating John Morrison because he had just got back with WWE, and he was one of the guys that was fed to Brock Lesnar in the Royal Rumble. And Morrison he lasted less than 30 seconds. So I'm glad that Morrison got the win. That helped to keep the people happy with him. Unfortunately, like I said, this was, they did this one other time because they did the other members on the following SmackDown. So it was Jey Uso, The Miz, and Big E. Like I said, this was taped 2 weeks before it actually aired. So the 2-week quarantine that Miz had to go through made him eligible for the SmackDown match. And then Big E won that match, and the New Day became the tag champions. But that's irrelevant. No one's going to remember that. Only thing that's going to remember is John Morrison falling with both straps. Boom.
Yes.
And bringing it home. Hey.
I have a note in here. It's interesting. You were like, you made that comment. You wish Miz was in the match. My note here says, if Miz was in the match, I don't think it would have been as good. I really have that note. Because the 3 that they had in there, it was their style match. It really isn't a Miz style match. He probably would have done some creative things to make it good, but that match really suited those people, and it really put a spotlight on John Morrison that he really hasn't had before or since. Yep. WWE.
Yeah. The ladder match is not Miz's forte. He's not a formal, Money in the Bank winner or anything,
It's still not his forte.
He's not good at it.
Well, he doesn't do the high-flying stuff like the.
Yeah, no, he's a grounded wrestler. I'll give you that.
Yeah. Match 6 and 7. This is Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins. I credit Kevin Owens with 2 wins here. Do you agree?
No.
Okay. I do because this was a bell rings and another bell rings. They announced him as the winner, and then they set up a no DQ match, different stipulations. I feel like this is different than a match getting restarted.
I thought they said the match was restarted.
They did not.
I would assume the match was restarted. I don't know. It happens on Raw all the time.
Yeah. So yeah, it does happen a lot, but I consider this too. So anyway, what happened in the first half or the first match was after 9:16, they rolled to the outside. Rollins hit Owens with a ring bell, and that caused a DQ. Unsatisfied with the disqualification victory, Kevin calls Seth back, calls him a little bitch, calls him back to the ring, and asks for a no DQ match. That match happens. And the highlight is that Kevin Owens climbs to the top of the WrestleMania sign, which has got to be the highest point in the Performance Center.
Yeah.
And he jumps off it onto Rollins, through a table, back in the ring. He hits a stunner, gets the win in another 9-minute match. So I have it. Rollins was 6-1 coming in. Now he's 6-3. I guess you have him at 6-2.
No, I'm not gonna do Rollins dirty like that. But they, So I really enjoyed that. I felt like I picked Kevin Owens. I think a majority of everybody picked Kevin Owens for two reasons. One is the constant reminder that Rollins at that point was untouchable at WrestleMania, and then the fact that Owens has done nothing but fail. So if you keep on beating those two horses in the head, you're bound to get the opposite. So, but Seth Rollins again, he was looking to join an exclusive club himself. He was on a 4-match winning streak at WrestleMania. 3 men have had more than 4 in history. Of course, the Undertaker at 21. No one's going to touch that. Edge and Daniel Bryan each had 5-match win streaks. So they're the only 2 other than the Undertaker to win more than 4 in a row. You're looking at it like you're questioning me. I was
thinking about Hogan. Like, what happened to Hogan? But he lost at 4. He lost.
No contest. That doesn't count. But so Rollins again, he was on the brink of history. So doing that, it's a lot of people have tried. I think the one person you can is at 4 right now who's still active in the world is Rob Van Dam. And I don't think he's coming back to Mania anytime soon. But
Rollins is saying that.
So all the things adding up, and keep on knocking Kevin Owens. He's not going to have his moment. So you kind of saw this coming. And unfortunately, I think Owens hurt his ankle on that as well. So Owen actually had to take some KO, had to take some time off after that stunt. But so I got Kevin Owens. That's 3 matches in a row for me picked correctly with Sammy, John Morrison, and Kevin Owens. I was feeling pretty good at this point in time until the wheels fell off. But I'm doing all right now.
Now, the interesting thing about this is this match had probably the most committed build. Now, there's some other matches that have really good builds. This particular match was the main event of Monday Night Raw, basically from January 1st through WrestleMania. It was always Rollins and AOP versus Owens and Big Show, Owens and Samoa Joe, Owens and the Street Profits, Owens and the Viking Raiders. It was some combination of people that built to this match. So they spent a lot of time building to this match, and it was, match 6 of a 7-match card, 8 if you consider the Boneyard on night 1. So it's just kind of interesting. Like when you look at the talent that was involved, a lot of part-time talent in the main events of Mania. So a match like this gets all the main event spots on Raw. So
this was a top build match. This was probably top 5 build. But the two titles, Taker and AJ, and Randy and Edge was up there too. But this was the upper tier. And they're 2 great stars. Kevin Owens and Seth. That was a great pairing. They've been friends. They've known each other for years now, since their days at Ring of Honor. That was a great pairing. They deserved to have this match together at WrestleMania. It did not disappoint. Perfect.
Okay. So R-Truth introduces himself to Gronk, ends up losing the 24/7 championship to Mojo Rawley. That's all I have to say about that. Match 8, Braun Strowman versus Bill Goldberg for the Universal Championship. Now I'm going to read something here from Uncle Dave on this subject. So roll your eyes. I will look at what I'm
hey, I don't like. He's entitled to his opinion too, but he's just a fan, just like me and you. So I don't know why he gets to have the overall end all end saying, but whatever. That's just me.
So he says, even though Roman Reigns left for health concerns on March 26, over the next week, he was still advertised for the title shot against Goldberg on the ensuing SmackDown and Raw show. When Triple H was asked about this, he talked about the creative way they were going to tell the story. As it turned out, that never existed. It was the weirdest thing. On SmackDown show the night before the match, they were running down the card and mentioned Goldberg versus Strowman in passing. Reigns was never mentioned again on television or either night of the pay-per-view, even if he was all over the video packages and the advertising mainstream for the show. So I will say I had a big gripe with this too, that they really did a bad job of they were selling this pay-per-view hard, asking people to put out $50 a night for this on the different apps and traditional pay-per-view. And they were advertising Roman Reigns, even though they knew that he wasn't going to be there. So I did have a gripe with that, in fairness. I'm fine with the Braun Strowman substitution, and I think they did the right thing in this match. Having said that, I don't really have anything more to say about it.
Okay, I got 2 points on this. One, I picked Goldberg. Now, hear me out on this one. So, like I said, it was originally supposed to be Roman. I think everybody and their mother would have picked Roman Reigns.
Sure.
That was the thing. So my thinking was, okay, well, we're getting a swerve here. How much time is Roman going to seriously take off? So I'm like, okay, so maybe just to get people back. If people aren't happy right now, and to get people back, save this for SummerSlam.
Yep.
You don't need to put Goldberg on TV. We've lived our lives without titles. On TV in the Brock Lesnar era, it's fine, whatever. We're used to it. But you could have done that. That's kind of where my head was at. So that's why I picked Goldberg, just so when Roman comes back at SummerSlam, if he comes back at SummerSlam, and I was right, he did come back at SummerSlam, they would have that match there, and then Roman beats him to get the title, which is what Roman did anyway, but he beat The Fiend the following week.
Yep.
Or the following pay-per-view, because then back-to-back, I think Payback was the following week. That was random, too, the back-to-back weekends of WWE pay-per-views. And the second thing was, did you watch the Chronicle or the day of or whatever with WrestleMania 36?
For Strowman?
Strowman drove all the way home from Florida. I think he lives in one of the Dakotas. He drove all the way across the country, south to north. And when he got home, they called him, we got to send the jet for you. We need you back. You got to fight Goldberg. Roman's out.
It's so funny because
that's crazy.
You hear that story, and then if you watch the same type of Chronicle with Drew McIntyre, it was the same similar thing. He was over in Scotland.
Yep.
Shooting that awesome commercial that they did. And he got the phone call at like 2 a.m, like, you got to come, the borders are going to be shut down. I will say the day after WrestleMania, I think the Monday after, Vince McMahon was one of a few people that actually met with the president to talk about the situation in the country and what they were going to do with live sports and things like that. So it's possible that Vince had maybe a little bit more heads up than the rest of us about what was happening.
Yeah.
He got the people lined up to do the show. So.
Yeah, I just think that just raises the question, though. Like, okay, so you're already building this, too big for one night. You have 16 matches, and you couldn't find a spot for Strowman on this. Like, I think that blows my mind out of this situation. Like, all right, if you give me 16 slots with the current WWE roster, I'd find a spot for Strowman.
Well, they may have been planning him to win the Andre Battle Royal. They may have been planning things like that. They probably had a spot in mind, and then they were hedging their bets and said, okay, let's hold him in reserve.
Yeah.
We lose one of our big matches, which is what happened.
Yep.
So it may have been like a plan to protect the plan type of thing. Yeah. But we've spent a lot of time talking about what was a 2-minute match. 2 minutes, 11 seconds.
And by the way, the final score, Strowman 4, Goldberg 3.
Yes.
4 power slams is better than 3 spears, if those of you scoring at home.
Goldberg hit 3 spears. Strowman kicked out. Goldberg hit a 4th spear and went for a jackhammer. Strowman evaded. He hit the 4 power slams, or 3. 4 power slams. Braun got the pin 2-11. Is that what you said too?
Sure. Yeah. And Braun did the title okay. He had a good feud with Bray Wyatt after this. So I'm not upset that Braun Strowman won the Universal title. I don't think anybody was. Braun did us a favor. Braun went out of his way, drove the entire length of the country, south and north, just to be called back. So thank you, Braun Strowman.
Then we get a WrestleMania Goes Hollywood promo right after that.
Yeah,
that didn't age well.
Yeah.
Eventually,
2 years, right? We'll get it.
Yeah. Okay, then we have the Boneyard Match. A lot of people consider this to be the best thing on either night. We'll talk through it here. It was not the first cinematic match produced or even distributed, but it's the one that we all remember. Ciampa Gargano actually came first. The match opens with Undertaker's music playing, and a hearse arrives with a casket. Druids open the casket to reveal AJ Styles. Taker would arrive moments later on a motorcycle. Moments into the fight, Taker would legitimately cut his arm.
Yeah.
The Good Brothers got involved. Gallows got tossed off a roof. Anderson got tombstone on a roof. And AJ Styles got chokeslammed off a roof.
Yep.
Undertaker climbed down. and he approached AJ Styles, and he was saying, and he said this. Still want to talk? Hey, what's my wife's name? You remember her now? You remember? Okay. Why don't you tell me how old I am? Is this going to hurt my legacy? Stay with me, boy. Stay with me. We're just getting started. So those were great lines. I mean, the some of the talking on both these cinematic matches was amazing. So we're actually pretty close to done here, though. Taker carried AJ toward the grave. He continued, "You're a lot tougher than I gave you credit for." Styles was begging Taker for mercy, and Taker told him to go out like a man. In a moment of mercy, Taker gives him a hug, turns to walk away, pauses, turns back, kicks AJ into the grave. The camera zooms in on Taker's face. We can read the malice in his eyes. He drops the soil on AJ, whose hand just sticks out of the grave, and the familiar Undertaker gong tolls. Undertaker's Dead Man theme plays. He reveals the writing on the grave. AJ Styles, rest in peace, 1977 to 2020. Taker would put his do-rag on, mount his motorcycle, rev the engine, throw up his arm, magically lights the symbol on the barn. He rides off. In the background, we hear the music he rode in on. The lyric from the music that remains in my ear today is, "We can live forever." It's a great match. I mean, it's start to finish. It's cinematic. I mean, it's not a match, but it was a really fun and entertaining piece.
Entertaining is the word. It's exactly it. And this is it as we know it right now, because he retired at the Survivor Series. And I think this was, I would say, a poetic way for him to go out, because, you know, it's the same with Mick Foley. Mick Foley got to go out as Mick Foley. So I think this was more, this wasn't the dead man. Right. This wasn't the biker Taker, even though he wrote it out. But this was a Mark Calloway feud that AJ Styles, he humanized the Undertaker. He mentioned his wife. He did this. He humanized the Undertaker, which is fine. You know, for one match, he got to be Mark Calloway, and I think that was a very poetic way to end it. And I do believe the arm in the air on the bike with the crossover, that was the Carl of the K Award winner for Moment of the Year for Monday Night Raw. So that was great. And if that's the last time we see Undertaker before he's in a tuxedo accepting his ring, then so be it. You know, I'm completely satisfied with that. So,
is this going to hurt my legacy? What a line. No, it doesn't. It enhances his legacy. I think it is the ending that we needed. And here's a piece of trivia for you. Oh. 2 of the Druids. One was Matt Martell. One was Chase Parker.
Really?
Never Rise rules as a Druid.
Never Rise rules. All right.
Yeah, this was probably the best thing received on both nights of the show.
Yep.
Great stuff. It's how we close it. And let's pause for a moment. I want to ask you.
Sure.
Because there's even today, there's talks of Undertaker being involved with some of the WrestleMania planning. Now, I don't want a match. I don't even want a cinematic match. But there are things that even in his retired state that I think would be kind of cool. You know how we had that Jack Sparrow type opening? Okay. It would be kind of cool if you have like this cinematic feature 2-minute thing that sweeps into a graveyard and you've got Taker digging a hole and he says, "Welcome to WrestleMania." Something like that I think would be a really fitting way to use him. If you
perfect, because that is synonymous. It's right. It's Undertaker, it's WrestleMania. There's certain things in the wrestling, whatever, they just go together, and the Undertaker and the streak and everything that he's ever done. Yeah, I would for years now. Just Undertaker introduces us to WrestleMania. That would be very perfect. I would really enjoy that.
Yep. Yeah. So I think there are ways to get him involved that doesn't have to piss off everybody. So let's think about that. All right.
I wouldn't mind seeing him drop John Cena again in 30 seconds. That was fun.
That was played the hits that year.
Yeah.
All right. So day 2. This is going to be a long episode, probably the longest we'll ever have.
Yeah, we'll take it. That's it. This episode is too big for just 1 hour, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to keep rolling on.
Here we go. Charlotte Flair versus Rhea Ripley kicks off the show on night 2. Stephanie McMahon, by the way, she did welcome us back for another night. It is for the NXT Championship. Charlotte Flair won the Royal Rumble, and Rhea Ripley insisted that she be the one who Charlotte challenged. Everything about Rhea Ripley's presentation I thought was so on point. Her music, her attire, her personality, the video packages, the push, the storyline. Huge star. She lost.
I got it wrong. Yeah.
She hit the riptide early in the match. Charlotte kicked out. Charlotte worked over Ripley's legs and got the win using the figure 8 in 20 minutes, 27 seconds. One of the longer matches on both nights. But yeah, Charlotte got the win here. She would go on to have an NXT title reign. Rhea never got it back.
No, she still hasn't gotten it back. Now it's funny because Rhea went home after this. I think they knew that. I think Rhea went back to New Zealand or Australia. She's from that area. I can't remember which country exactly. I think she went home after this. But the build they had for her, her in the stadium, the empty stadium, and just going through all the things and taking it all in, and just you had it like, oh my god, this I had me believing. I said I got that one wrong. I had Rhea, one of the many wrong I had on this night. I think we were all shocked, and then of course, oh my god, Charlotte's forced down on third. And you know what? I think Rhea went home. This was a nice way. So Charlotte got to appear on Raw with the NXT Women's Championship, but then she had a couple of good matches she fought. I think Mia Yim in her first match on NXT, and I think she had one other match before she lost the triple threat when Rhea came back, when Io Shirai took over. So Charlotte, she doesn't get a lot of credit for being a good. I get she's shoved down her throat, and everything's always Charlotte, and I get it, but she is that good though. Like that's the funny thing. Like when she has to go, she can go. So I think it's. I'm not upset by all that she won, especially said hindsight 2020. Looking back at it now, Rhea had to go home. They needed something to transition to get to Io Shirai. So that was a nice bridge. And a funny fact, going back to trivia from earlier, it was actually in my notes. I can't even show you right now. The answer that I got wrong. Gronk knows about dropping the hammer on Sunday.
That's awesome. That's right there on your notes. Thank you for not cheating.
Yeah.
All right, match 2. Aleister Black versus Bobby Lashley. Now, this is the Lana days of Bobby Lashley. Aleister Black had some really sick shoulder pads for this match, though, when he came out. They're like these horns sticking up and stuff. But Lashley was accompanied to the ring by Lana, and he had the match lock, stock, and barrel. Balor was not on the show.
Balor was not on the show.
But Lashley had the match won, but Lana requested a spear. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why. I don't think she watched night 1. Goldberg, it didn't work for him. Why would she ask Lashley to do it?
Yeah, well, maybe she's got a thing for the spear. Maybe that's one of her little things. I'm gonna try to keep this clean, but yeah. When they first booked this match, I popped for it. I'm like, oh my god, that's awesome! I love this. Is awesome. This was absolutely. I loved this pairing again, and I guess that going back to what we said about Baron Corbin and Elias, we wouldn't have gotten this if it wasn't for a 16-match card here. So it got its time. Was it 5-star? No, I'll even agree with Uncle Dave on that one. But yeah, but the whole thing was to set up the divorce that everyone's was clamoring for, which is fine. It didn't work. I'll agree to that too. It got Aleister Black a win at WrestleMania in a singles match over a very, very good competitor. I thought everything was great. I would have liked maybe another few minutes, a little better action. The match kind of failed my expectations for what in my head it could have been, but I was excited it happened. I'm happy Aleister got the win. I'm excited it led to the divorce. Everything is right with the world.
Yeah, and Lashley would go on to be much better off after that divorce. So he attempted the spear, got hit with the Black Mass. Aleister won in 7:13. We move on to WrestleMania. We have backstage interview segments. Bayley says she's confident. Banks says, let's wait and see. We waited. Meanwhile, Gronk wanted the 24/7 championship. He wanted to leave with it by the end of the night. He would eventually do that, by the way, by diving off the PC perch onto a pile of people, and then he pinned Mojo Rawley. The memorable thing about that, in hindsight afterwards, is the fact that we have all these videos of Vince McMahon showing Gronk how to do it. 77-year-old Vince McMahon taking a leap of faith onto the crash pad. It's easy, Gronk. Go do it. Okay, match 3, Otis versus Dolph Ziggler. So this is another one of those memorable storylines in the early part of 2020. It was the love story of Mandy Rose and Otis, along with Sonya Deville and Dolph Ziggler colluding to ruin Otis and Mandy's Valentine's Day date. Otis and Dolph got a WrestleMania match. Mandy and Sonya got a SummerSlam match. The way this went down in the match, Sonya distracted the referee. Ziggler hit a low blow. Mandy came to ringside, tossed Sonya in the ring. While the referee was dealing with Sonya, Mandy jumped in, gave Dolph a low blow. Otis followed up Caterpillar. 1, 2, 3. He gets the win, and he gets to kiss the girl.
Yeah, I got this one completely off. I was way off on this one. I had the swerve here. I just had heartbroken Otis. She was working with Ziggler the whole time, and someone like I had this whole thing wrong. I just assumed that, not that Otis is a bad amateur, but like, you're in the ring with Dolph Ziggler, and this was Dolph's first ever. How many years has he been in the company now? This is his first ever one-on-one match at WrestleMania, and I just thought they wouldn't do him dirty like that. So I had Ziggler, and I have in my notes, Otis defeated Dolph Ziggler in a travesty, and that's all the notes I have on it. I wanted Ziggler to get this win. I thought he's earned it over the length of his career and the tenure he's had. And I said I thought there's the exclamation point on the story. Because Mandy said, she's actually proved us wrong over hindsight's 2020. Mandy Rose wasn't all sunshine and daisy. She was kind of a B. So I was kind of thinking that this was just a swerve all along, and it had like that heart wrenching moment for Otis at the end of this, and that just didn't happen. And honestly, Ryan, I don't know if you've done any investigative journalism. Are they even still together now? Like, is this like, are they still dating?
Hard to say.
They're on different shows, thanks to The Miz, but are they still?
I don't know. I'll have to, I'm down here in Florida. Maybe I can swing through the Orlando area. And see if any restaurants have any pictures of them together or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Next match, Randy Orton versus Edge. This was the second longest match in WrestleMania history. 36 minutes, 39 seconds is what I clocked it in on. It felt like about 27 hours.
Yeah, this was a long one. I didn't. Wow, the second longest. I know which one's the longest. That's a pretty obvious trivia question. But wow.
Yeah, second longest in history. Dave Meltzer would say, and I think this is a great quote because it does summarize how I feel. By 12 minutes, it sucked. By 18, it was Chinese water torture. And it was 36 minutes before Edge finally beat him. So he was very rough on this match. And he said the announcers did them no favors, whispering like it was the 13th hole in Augusta, which made things boring. I have a whole litany of the things that happened. They battled into the PC gym and out and onto the stage, the Performance Center. They crashed through storage cages and all kinds of things. The match eventually proceeded into the garage area where Randy gave Edge a draping DDT on the back of a pickup truck. Edge climbed on top of a production truck. Orton followed. Edge hit a spear. Orton hit an RKO. Randy went and got chairs. Eventually, before Orton could hit the concerto, Edge jumped up, put Orton in a chokehold, and then Edge hit the concerto, and that was the finish of the match. It was a long one, though.
Yeah, and that was the poetic ending that I didn't see. Again, I said I didn't have a good night too. I picked Randy Orton because my philosophy was, okay, so this guy's been retired for X amount of years now, right? Over 5. Was it more than 10? How long was he out for? 9 years? 10 years?
9 years. 9.
And you're going to come in and beat Randy Orton? So that was my philosophy. But then I realized it wasn't a wrestling match. It was a fight. So I was right, just not at that show. When I was right when Randy won the greatest wrestling match of all time or forever, whatever the name was. I was right on that. So my thinking was right. I just had the wrong, oh, this is a fight. And then the concerto ending after Randy did it to both Edge. And then I believe he got Beth with it too. So poetic ending. And whatever. Yeah, was it too long? Probably. But, they worked. They worked their butts off in that match, and I'm not going to take that away from them. So, thank you, guys.
There's a spot in here that made me uncomfortable, though.
Yeah, I know the Benoit. Okay.
Yeah. And the thing that's particularly bad about the spot in the gym where Randy was hanging Edge with the equipment is that 2 days prior to the filming of this, that Chris Benoit documentary aired on Vice. And then they
was it? Wow.
Then they had 2 weeks, and nobody caught this. Nobody caught that. It's just a little uncomfortable, but
yeah, I guess maybe I didn't think of that. That's not what I thought of when I was watching this match. Chris Benoit hardly ever entered my mind. I was a fan, but I don't. I wasn't gaga over him like everybody else was. Not that he doesn't deserve to be. He was absolutely phenomenal, but I did not think of Chris Benoit. And even after, like I said, I didn't watch the documentary, the Viceland thing, until after the fact, and I still didn't think of it. Until somebody mentioned it on Facebook because, God forbid, wrestling fans were happy. They decided they wanted to, complain about it, which is, I guess, the timing was wrong. Yeah.
About this match, Meltzer says there's technically been worse matches, but none as boring because the worst matches in Mania history were often short or fit into so bad it's perversely entertaining. But he also gave credit. He said, as the polls show, some people actually like the match. So he also does a best match, worst match poll, and some people, about 60 people out of the 500 that voted in the breeders poll, said that this match was the best match on the card. So
good. They worked their butts off in that match, and it was good. They worked for it. That was, and you know what? Whether it was, if you want to blame the empty crowd, whatever, I don't know. I don't know what the problem was. I knew this match was long. Actually, I didn't rewatch it for this show. I kind of wanted to get through, and but I know what happened, and I know that the gym things. But they worked, man. 36 minutes. Those guys just worked their tails off. And you're going to dog them. So that's great, Dave. Good job. Good for the industry. Wow. That's great for the industry. Thanks.
We don't have 36 minutes to talk about the match, though. So let's move on to the tag team title match. Raw Tag Team Championships. We got Street Profits versus Angel Garza and Austin Theory with Zelina Vega, who also had some killer shoulder pads for this match. She had skulls on them.
Yeah.
Cool. Partway through the match, Garza hit a moonsault from the top rope to the floor. That was one of the highlights. Mm-hmm. Montez Ford would hit from the heavens frog splash. Dawkins covered for the win. Garza, Theory, and Vega triple teamed Montez after the match until eventually Bianca Belair ran out and made the save. Belair hit the kiss of death, the KOD on Zelina Vega.
Yep.
Send us home happy.
Yeah, that was perfect. That was great. The Street Profits, the good guys win. Just to rewind a bit, Andrade was supposed to be in this. It was supposed to be Andrade and Angel Garza. Andrade did suffer an injury. It wasn't a COVID thing or a health thing, whatever. He suffered a rib injury, if I remember correctly. And they kind of last minute just called up Austin Theory to do it. That was a random call up. That was weird because he had just kind of started up in NXT. So that was but that was his time to shine. I didn't think nothing wrong with Austin Theory. There was nothing wrong with this match. It was a decent tag team championship match. I put over the Street Profits. That was I got that one right. That was one of the few I got right on this day. So I'll take that. And welcome aboard, Bianca Belair. You last 30-something minutes in the Royal Rumble. You tossed out 8 people. Welcome to the main roster.
Yep. So since Gronk is being pursued, we find out Titus O'Neil is the new host of WrestleMania. That we find out here. That was basically all he said. Match 6, though, this is the Fatal 5-Way with Bayley and Tamina and Sasha and who are the other ones? I didn't write them down.
Well, Lacey was at the end and Naomi, right?
Naomi. There you go. Yeah, and so Hang on, Siri's wants to get involved.
I didn't get.
Banks and Bailey didn't have a smooth going in this match. Team Bad had a 30-second rerun or a reunion. Bailey did not help Banks. Banks did help Bailey. Bailey retains.
I popped for that. I thought Team Bad was on. I was a huge Sasha Banks fan when she was in NXT. I popped for the Team Bad. I did it with them. Unity. But they so Lacey hit the women's right on Sasha. Bailey didn't help.
Nope.
Sasha got eliminated, and then Bailey ended up doing that step finisher thing that she does, which Sasha helped her with, to get Lacey to that point. So that was, again, I got this one wrong. I thought they were going to do it. I thought this was going to come down to Sasha and Bailey, and that this was the time, and this was the explosion. And, we were only, I think, 4.5 years in the making at that point. So we were still, they had a little more traction left. And it was a good thing they didn't do it then, because to tell you the truth, Bailey and Sasha, they worked the rest of the way together on all 3 shows as tag champions. So that was great. So I was happy I'm wrong with that one in hindsight. But Sasha's still she's on that list right now. She can't get a WrestleMania win if she needed it.
They stepped up really big after this and basically carried shows until we got to the Thunderdome theater type of venue. When you think about it, it's kind of their stuff kind of started to really fall apart as a unit when Thunderdome came around. That was about the time.
Yeah, it's when Elise Ashton came around. That's when Elise asked them. She didn't interview him. All of a sudden, she broke him up. So that was all on Elise Ashton.
There you go. We got to blame somebody. So match 7 is John Cena, Bray Wyatt, Firefly Funhouse. Now, at the time, I had the same kind of question that Titus had. What did I just see?
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, let me see. It was, I don't know what I just saw. That was his quote. And it was weird because we're all expecting like a traditional match or something Boneyard-esque similar. This was really different.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was garbage when I first watched it. It was an advertised match. My expectations probably weren't set. Now, I went back and watched it for the show, and my expectations were different, right? I knew what I was going to go. I knew I was going to watch like this cinematic movie thing. This ages really well, I think.
Yeah.
I think this was fantastic in hindsight. If you didn't have in your mind that you're going to see The Fiend versus John Cena in the ring, and you go back and you're like, okay, I'm going to see a creative work of art, this was amazing. So let me run through this match because this is some of Bray Wyatt's best work, I think. There's another world that exists beyond our realm of comprehension, a world where our darkest urges are no longer kept secret, a world where gods, monsters, angels, and demons are neighbors. Who are we really? And why do we do the things we do? Let's take a look at who you really are. You're about to face your most dangerous opponent, yourself.
Yep. Welcome
to the Firefly Funhouse. That's how this thing starts. It's like Bray Wyatt in his, in the Funhouse, and he's just got this intensity to him. And we end up going on and reliving John Cena's career. We go back to the boss asking John about ruthless aggression. Bray challenges John with the same words Angle used, and you have flashes back and forth between Kurt Angle and Bray making this challenge. Cena comes out in that old gear, which is really weird looking, but
prototype.
Yeah. Bray tells Cena that it was his biggest failure. It was Cena's biggest failure. We flash from there to like the Saturday night's main event stuff, and you got Cena and Bray cutting an 80s promo as if they're a tag team. And at the end of that, Bray looks at Cena after Cena's done these curls like this, like going a million miles an hour. He looks at Cena and he says, "What you gonna do when you realize egomania has been running wild on you?" He's like, this is like setting up this like perfect story for John Cena. We flash again to Thugonomics, where Cena rhymes and we literally hear crickets. Cena says something about putting his junk in a glove and calling it Mr. Sacco. He continues about Bray wasting his chances, and then more brilliant Bray dialogue. Chances. How dare you talk to me about chances, John Cena? I've had to earn everything I've ever been given in life, and still they're taking from me. You're the golden goose, John. Your chances, they're unlimited. You're untouchable. But you're not a hero, John. You're a bully. You're a horrible person. You take the weakness of others and you turn them into jokes. You do anything for fame. Congratulations. You're the man now, John. Poor, lonely John Cena. This is your last chance, John. The floor is yours. And he gives John Cena a moment to think. Is Cena going to make some sort of apology or something? No, Cena comes at him. And when he comes at him, they switch to Swamp Wyatt. And Swamp Wyatt goes on, he says, I was the color red in a world full of black and white. I had the whole world in my hands. Abigail spoke of this day my entire life. You were supposed to be a man of the people. Hear them now, John. They wanted me. They needed me. This was supposed to be a prophecy fulfilled, but instead it's my grandest failure. I've hurt for so long I can't remember what it's like to feel. Now it's time to rewrite my story. This incredible dialogue from Bray Wyatt.
But that was Bray at that point, though. That was Alligator Bray, or Firefly, whatever. What's the word I'm looking for?
He switches. Now Bray is Eric Bischoff introducing Hulk Hogan as if the NWO. It's Bray, but it's not Bray introducing Hulk Hogan. It's Bray introducing John Cena, and it kind of shows us that like maybe John Cena should have turned heel like Hogan did. With this whole NWO thing. And The Fiend does eventually come back to greet Cena in the ring. And as The Fiend readies to Sister Abigail, we hear the words of John Cena from this feud come back to haunt John Cena. This WrestleMania match is going to accomplish what should have happened 6 years ago, ending the existence of the most overhyped, overvalued, overprivileged WWE superstar in existence. The scene ends with The Fiend pinning John Cena with the mandible claw as Bray Wyatt counts Cena's shoulders to the mat. Titus O'Neil says, what we were all thinking, I don't know what I just saw. This was incredible. It was put together by Bray Wyatt and Bruce Pritchard with input from John Cena. This told an incredible story. I believe this was a legitimate face turn for Bray Wyatt that nobody saw.
Yeah. This was. I can't go into any more detail than you just did. It was absolutely. It was fun. Like I said, my when I said Firefly Funhouse match, I just thought maybe the ring was going to be decorated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't know it was going to get that, and I'm so happy we did. This was absolutely perfect. Bray Wyatt, when it comes to stuff like this, exactly. He's very well spoken, very well written. I don't know how much of the stuff he writes himself, but everything was just. That was perfect. Again, that was one of those things you had to watch again, and you have to watch again. And every time you watch it, you're going to find something new. You're like, oh, I didn't see that the first time or the second time. That was awesome. So yeah.
Sorry, I got a text here. We move on from here. That was a great match.
Yeah.
Drew McIntyre and Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship. McIntyre hit a Claymore in the first 20 seconds. Lesnar kicked out. Brock evaded the second Claymore and hit 2 German suplexes. Lesnar then hit an F5 that McIntyre kicked out of. After a 1 count, McIntyre kicked out of a second and third F5. When Lesnar went for a fourth, McIntyre slipped out, hit Lesnar with 1, 2, 3 Claymores, gets the pinfall victory, 4 minutes, 28 seconds. The crowning of Drew McIntyre after all this time.
Yeah, that was big. I had Lesnar in that match. Again, I just didn't think maybe I just didn't understand what was going on with the pandemic or whatever. I just had Lesnar thinking that okay, at SummerSlam, look at the same thing. I kind of use SummerSlam as the thing to get us out of this. Like okay, well you don't want to get the guy a title right at the beginning. I don't know. I just thought it was not that I don't care that Drew McIntyre's champion. I mean, I like it. He's great, but I just figure, the live crowd, this and that. So Again, I was wrong.
Well, but Drew got this win. It was a good build. He won the Rumble. It was a good story all the way through. He gets this win. He gets crowned. He's the chosen one. Goes on to have a great run as champion. Eventually loses to Randy Orton, but gets the title back. So I think this was the making of Drew McIntyre, and it's too bad for him it wasn't in front of 80,000 people in Raymond James, but that's been the story of everybody for that year.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's what it was. And like I said, they could have, and we haven't seen Brock Lesnar since. So, you knew Brock was going to be going somewhere. So, you know what? He put it up one more time. For the good of the company, he knew he had to drop the title. He knew he had to show up. So, Brock Lesnar, thank you.
There you go.
John Cena, thank you. I didn't thank you properly either, because John Cena, we haven't seen him since he got snapped. I don't know, with Thanos. Bray Wyatt with Thanos on him.
Now, the funny thing about this is we are recording this before the Royal Rumble. So we don't know. Yeah. There's some of these things we know. So it may be that we have to air this earlier. We'll see.
Yeah.
The main question, Al, though, after we've gone through everything blow by blow and sometimes match by match or move by move and sometimes word for word, does this WrestleMania hold up?
Yeah, I watched it the other day, and it held up fine. Like, this is still the same guys that are on TV now. And looking back at it, 2020, some of the things or the way they booked them, they make sense now. Like, not separating Sasha and Bayley. We're glad they didn't. The Aleister Black went, oh my God. So they separated Lashley and Lana, and that was in the Hurt business. That works. Everything makes sense. Keeping the belt on Sammy just so he can come back later and claim to be the true champion, even though somebody else has it. I think this is absolutely perfect. And they said when you watch, now knowing that this is the Undertaker's last match, now knowing, okay, if you watch the Firefly Funhouse with fresh eyes, with a new perspective, how much better it is. So yes, this 100% will hold true to the test of time. But the problem is, no one's going to go back and watch it because it was in an empty arena.
Yeah, no, it's difficult to do that. Like, it is difficult to watch start to finish this particular WrestleMania. However, I think this is one of those shows that, when chopped up, is kind of going to be very good. I think this will be when people do retrospectives on people's careers. These matches from this show will be in there because it was such a unique time.
Yep.
And we need the benefit of time on this one to really appreciate these matches that we had, because some of them are very good. Like we talked about, that ladder match was incredible. Some of them are throwaway, like Aleister Black and Bobby Lashley. It was there. It was fine. These cinematic matches, these were terrific. And I will say, nobody is looking back. Nobody remembers that Firefly Funhouse match with that much fondness. But man, if they go back and watch it for what it is, I was blown away. Absolutely blown away on my second viewing. I stopped that thing and I went back and re-listened to the words. It was a work of art.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, everything was great. Like I said, the bottom line was 16 matches. However many wrestlers were on this card, they put us first.
Yes.
For these 2 nights. And that, it wasn't at a big stadium yet. It wasn't these guys, they were there for us in a moment of time where we actually didn't need it, to tell you the truth. That's something, they needed entertainment. We don't need entertainment. We don't read a book, they wanted to do this for us. The show must go on. And that's why to everybody who competed on that card, everybody whose name we mentioned, and then even the ones that we didn't, like Vince McMahon, I'm sure Vince's name popped up at some point in time, but just thank you. Thank you. The show must go on. The show went on. You did it for us. And as a true wrestling fan, as somebody who just was excited all the way up to it and was looking forward to it, crowd or not, thank you.
Well said. Their mission statement is to put smiles on faces.
Yeah.
That's what they did. It's what Stephanie said at the beginning. She's like, we are here to put smiles on faces. Mostly babyface wins up and down the card. Huge, way more higher percentage than what it typically would be.
Yeah.
That was the plan. Send us home happy, and they did.
Now, I'm going to throw this up. I showed this to you, how I was kind of mentioning throughout the show how bad I was doing at some point. I actually ended up going 8-8, and here's the Essential Wrestling Podcast crew and how we did. Minus you, Ryan. We weren't as close friends as we are right now, but we did put in John Smith, his 10-year-old son, Johnny, who did very well, but Tyler led the way. He went 12-4 with 255. He said there's major points at WrestleMania, but Tyler 12-4, John DeConnie 12-4, Gary went 9-7. Me and John Smith, we puttered with an 8-8 with a low point total. You know, those heavyweight championship matches are 50 points each, and when you lose, when you bet on Bill Goldberg and you bet on Brock Lesnar and they both lose, you tend to, you know, you took the gamble to try to get the placements in the standings, and it didn't pan out. So. But hopefully I do a little bit better this year.
I hope so. This was a lot of fun. I love going back and watching these old WrestleManias. When you said let's watch WrestleMania 36, I was like, really? But in hindsight, this was. I mean, but that's probably why nobody will go back and watch it. A lot of people are going to have that feeling. But I really enjoyed it. I had a great time with it.
And I think that was the problem. That was the problem with people going into it. People were defeated by this show going into it knowing there wasn't going to be a crowd.
Yeah.
The show sucked before it started. And that's not fair. If you went in fresh or excited like I was, because it's like we were waking up every day and this guy was out or this guy was in and this guy's hurt and this. If you had the general excitement, then you were good. But if you let the fact, I want to say you're weak-minded, but if you let the fact that the show was already garbage because there wasn't a crowd, then this is you were beat going into it, and then this Mania wasn't bad. Hopefully, maybe if people go back and watch it a second time, think, you know what, this was good wrestling, and that's all it was. That's all it could have been.
Yeah,
this was good wrestling.
Yep. Yeah, I can't say it better. So, Al, anything else before we get out of here today? This was better. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this was great. Like I said, I was itching to do this because Tyler and I was supposed to start with this show on the Essential Wrestling Podcast. We were supposed to start with a preview and a recap and then just roll forward from there, and that didn't happen, which is fine. You know, the powers that be, you know, they at the Eastern Observer, you know, it's powered by the Eastern Observer. You can taste the power, Ryan. Ready? You can taste the power. Our friends at the Eastern Observer, they decided to hold us off, which is fine. You know, we're rolling, we're smooth sailing now. What's done is done. But I've been itching to talk about this. I've been itching to just say my piece at an optimistic point of view because, like I said, everybody just was beat going into it, and it's just not fair considering they were going out of their way to do this for us.
Yes, they were. And I want to end the show with a quote from The Undertaker. Stay with me, boy. Stay with me. We're just getting started. If I can find my outro.